Hello, welcome back to Crit Couch. I'm Michael.
And I'm Skylar, and today I'm going to air some grievances.
So Skylar, at the end of last episode, we were talking about, we were just kind of talking about roguelikes and some stuff like that. This all did start with talking about randomizers for Zelda, but I want you to, before we get back to that, I do want to make sure you get to talk about your pet peeve and playability and stuff. Yeah. Because I think we can loop that back into the discussion.
So there's a large conversation, and you kind of talked about it a little bit in the last episode, where it's like, oh, this guy beat it in 1 hour, what a waste of money, kind of a thing. And it's like, okay, I have my own soapbox about time in versus money, the cost of developing games, all this. We may have even talked about this in prior ones. I know I'm not always the most opinionated individual. I'm here for the ha-has at times.
He just says shit and lets me talk for 10 minutes, and then y'all have to deal with it.
If you haven't figured it out, sometimes I'll ask a question and then hang back for 15 minutes. It's real easy on this side of the couch.
And then I'm like, oh, fuck, that's an episode.
Yeah. You know, I'm here for levity, but I'll actually share something that I think is like very prevalent in games journalism, and it is, we know, like sensationalized news and stuff is such a huge issue. One of the things that really grinds my gears is it just came to Family Guy. I see this so much, and it became, I want to say it became a lot more prevalent when like games as a service started becoming more prevalent themselves. And it would be like a game would come out, and then like 3 weeks later they'd be like, oh, the concurrent, you know, like here's this big article about like, oh, the concurrent players for this game have fallen off by like 75%, you know. It's like a single player game. Do you see where I'm going with this?
Well, it's funny you say that, because I had literally just earlier this week saw an article about Elden Ring, and how
really?
Yeah, and how its how its players dropped off. And it's like the Souls community, like there is a Souls community that is dedicated to the multiplayer piece of that continues to play with one another, that continues to do PvP, but like
it's largely
once you're done,
experience.
You're done. Like there's only a handful of people in general that will replay games multiple times, and actually Elden Ring has the highest number of platinum trophies of any Souls. Like I went and looked, like if you go and check all of them, it's like 10% of at least of the PlayStation user base has gotten the platinum trophy.
Wow, that's a lot.
There is no other Souls game on the, at least when I checked, like I think the highest was like 8% with like maybe Bloodborne. No, Bloodborne was like 6. So like tons of people played that game, tons of people beat that game. But like they got what they wanted out of it, and they don't want to hang, like it was a 100-hour experience.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm getting at with some of the like, and that's why playability reminded me of this, is like you talked about curated experiences and stuff. Shadow of the Colossus, how long does that game take to beat?
Oh, it's been a long time, but like 12 hours maybe?
Maybe.
If that, I mean, I might be remembering something completely different.
So I can do it faster. I love that game. And every now and then, I haven't actually done it in a few years now that I think about it, I would just sit down and I kid you not, I would start up at like midday on a Saturday or something, and by like 8 p.m. or something, I would have finished Shadow of the Colossus.
Yeah.
And I would have had my experience with it. And some of my favorite parts of Shadow of the Colossus are just riding aggro around through the fields, like when you're going to the Colossus.
It's a very fun experiential game for sure.
Yeah, I mean that's what one of my favorite things about Breath of the Wild was, just riding around on my horse. The games that offer me fast travel and open worlds, and Michael can 100% attest to this, like me and fast travel are not best of friends. I just love like going places. I don't think I ever used fast travel in Cyberpunk at all while playing through that. I just love driving those cars around, even when they were terrible.
I will never forget in that game, like walking outside of my apartment for the first time, like the apartment in the game, and going down to the road and watching as like NPC driver after NPC driver clipped the curb. Like,
oh yeah,
like the thing is like the hand. So
did it?
Yep, you're good.
All right, we're three.
Like,
we're three in now.
Because I drove around a lot in that game too. I mean, I have mixed feelings about my time in Cyberpunk, but I did drive around a lot, especially once I got the cars that handled better. It just cracked me up that like the car handling was, at least on some of the cars, was truly so bad that the NPC AI couldn't drive them right.
Well, so there's an interesting. I can talk about this a lot actually. To just finish off the other piece, like this concept of, and I don't know if this is a product of just the journalism. I don't know if this is a product of like Twitch and stuff and having like an audience like engaging with a game. I'm not sure where this stems from. I just think it's actually like it's really like poor fashion of us to assume that any game that comes out is going to be defined by how many people are playing it constantly, weeks, months after the game comes out. Some games you're meant to have that experience, and me too, brother. Some games
He's
like
actually just hungry.
Oh, is that right? Oh, you just give him the steak? Hey man, that's what solves my woes on a day sometimes too. What does that unlock?
The rest of the dungeon. You have to do that to get through the dungeon.
Well, this looks like chaos. So anyways, I bring this up only because like I think defining, especially like again using that word, like a curated experience or an experience that, you know, it has an endpoint, right? Defining it by like, oh, are people still playing it? It's like, well, it doesn't matter if, you know, I don't know, like how many units did it sell? Like 7 million in its first week or some crazy good crazy
wild number.
Yeah, like okay, all those people, 90% of them are going to be done with the game in like a few weeks, right? There's still going to be the weirdos like me still playing it because I just play through those games at the speed of molasses. And
whereas like I had a platinum within 2 weeks.
Exactly.
And like, you know, before any of the nerfs and stuff came out, because I
consume.
I also probably have a problem.
Yeah.
And I only say that half jokingly because, man,
like you and
Skylar liked talking to me about that game way better after I was done with it than while I was in the middle of it.
Yeah, we've had some conversations about like how you engage with games, and that's, I remember we even talked briefly. It's like you're kind of an achievement hunter, whereas I'm more of like an experience hunter. Like I want like atmosphere, and I want certain like feelings to get evoked and things like that.
So just loving the idea that these poor fucking gorillas spawned in the trap. Like
how do you get them out?
You just have to kill them.
Oh. Poor little sons of guns.
Well, I mean, they're trying to kill me. Anyway, sorry. Yeah. Sorry. Didn't mean to disrupt too much there.
That was mostly that. Hey, y'all enjoying an episode where I just run my trap for a while?
Yeah, he gets to have an opinion from time to time.
Yeah. So, man, going back to Cyberpunk. So, you were talking about the AI clipping and stuff. I played so much of that game because I wanted that game to be so much more than it was too. Admittedly.
I mean, I've got 180 hours in it, and I did as well. Like, the only thing that I really missed in that game was like collecting all of the legendary weapons, because I didn't know that was a thing that you could display them in your room, and so I missed several of them that were like permanently missable.
Yeah, remember what I was just talking about? Achievement hunters, everybody.
Yeah.
But so I would drive around a lot, and I mean, right when that game launched, so the AI and like civilian AI and driving, it was almost like they were on rails. There wasn't really AI so much as like they would drive until something obstructed them, which meant they would just drive through. Like you'd see somebody, like if their pathing was incorrect and there was like say a structure in the way, they would just wreck their car on that curb.
Yeah.
So they've done an update since the time of us recording this now. There is actual AI now. Like if you fire off a gun, like people will try and get away from you. Like cars will try and turn around and drive away. They'll actually go around you if you stop right in front of them. And it has like really drastically changed up how the game kind of functions. I'll even say like they got some of the driving mechanics to be a bit better now too. Cars are weightier, which was one of the biggest issues.
That's good.
I will say though, like driving in that game on a controller versus driving with a mouse and keyboard, a completely different experience. Really fun on a controller. It was either throttle or nothing on the keyboard, though. Like,
yeah,
that was the weirdest driving controls on a keyboard.
I had to kind of like learn how to tap it, because since you couldn't you didn't have the potentiometer, that you have inside the joystick. So I think they use potentiometers.
Either that or you just made up a wonderful new word.
No, potentiometers, it's the same thing that guitars use or volume knobs use, because what essentially happens is there's an electrical resistance strip, and as you turn it, there is more or less electrical resistance, and that's how the machine knows that you're increasing or decreasing speed. It's translating that higher or lower voltage into a value in the game or on the machine, whatever. And then that value represents whatever you want it to represent. So in this case, it would be faster or slower speeds, or with a guitar, it's higher and lower volumes, whatever. Yeah. And so joysticks operate on a similar principle, whereas with a D-pad, and this is where the coding matters of the of whatever your controller is.
Oh, eyeballs! I'm gonna dodge.
A D-pad, for the most part, is on-off. Now,
yeah.
I mean, you can, I think, at least maybe starting with the PS4 or 5 controller, they had some, oh God, fucking Wallmasters. They had some kind of dynamic thing going on, but...
come here, I'm gonna tickle.
But, D-pad, largely is just on-off. So, press down is... So you only have a 1 or a 0, which means if your movement system... These things don't actually hurt, which is why I don't give a shit. But that's why, if you have a movement system that relies on acceleration or deceleration...
It was the second to last one.
Yeah, of course. If you don't code it correctly... You're not going to be able to... What's up?
It's a snakehead.
Yeah.
A little map.
Yeah. Oh, and, to my earlier point, we were able to go inside that eye because that eye doesn't overlap with other dungeons. So, there's a high... They didn't have to put a room in there, but there's a high probability that they did to not waste a space.
Yeah. So.
But, yeah, the 1 or the 0 just means on or off. So unless you have other code in the movement to account for that kind of acceleration or deceleration, it's just going to be go or don't. But with the joysticks, you have a naturally built-in system of acceleration and deceleration, because the more you tilt that, it's our friend Derp Dragon again.
Yeah,
Hi guys, hi.
These
are his love orbs. That. I shouldn't have said that.
I've got a couple of those. There's, because I almost want to talk about Cyberpunk 2077 and some of that stuff, but I want to do that later, actually.
Yeah.
So we'll move on from that. Anyways, just
good little lesson on why controls can be goofy though, and it's, it also is a great, we talked I think earlier on about how this game is really interesting because, the enemies move around in a lot of different ways. And Link, when you move up, right, left, down, you don't have diagonal movement in this game. But if you're familiar with old JRPGs, like Final Fantasy, Dragon Warrior, or even into the Super Nintendo era, you're pretty used to the idea that your character moving, you kind of move in a block by block basis, right? This game, one of the things that made Zelda feel so good, talking about that movement deal, is that when I move, I can move in it's not fractions of the screen, it's an illusion, because they just didn't treat every tile as the movement system, because there are a lot of games where it's when you move left, you move a full sprite block left.
Yeah.
And that's how everything works. And part of what makes this game feel good is that ability to have a little bit of give. I'm not the trees aren't ever just touching my head. Like I can actually move a little bit over them to make it feel like there is depth to this world.
Can you get under them too? Like if you move down, like so, yeah, go down now.
No, you cannot.
I didn't know.
So that, I mean, there is that, but you know that would have required, like, you know, having them have different layers. There are actually games where I think we actually saw this in our Mystic Quest playthrough somewhere, where like there are things you can walk under, but so the way these trees have part of their sprite have the same color of the dirt, like right around the upper rim of the tree. In Mystic Quest, I believe, there was like a pillar or something we walked behind, and it had that as part of its sprite, where it looks like there's ground there, but the pillar or whatever it was completely on a different layer. So like the character just disappeared behind it entirely, even though it looked like you should be able to see little pieces of it. So it was a technical challenge. But you know, there were not a lot of Zelda clones. There were Zelda clones, but there weren't a lot of strictly like copying the Zelda style. They all kind of like danced around pieces of Zelda, you know, kind of looking like Zelda, but you know, either trying to differentiate themselves a little bit or.
Man, look at that Triforce. It's almost done.
Yep, we are gonna head to level 8, and actually.
Good time to go.
Yeah. You know, we're actually at about time for this episode. So next time on Crit Couch, we're gonna go head to one of the most obtuse dungeons in the game.
And before we find the obtuse dungeon, I'll just to really finish this out real quick here, because we both shared some opinions in these last episodes and stuff, and just to make sure we leave on a positive note too, is like just find the experiences and the fun that you want. Don't let other people define the right gameplay or anything like that, because like we both have our own ways of he's bored now of approaching.
No, this is how I approach games.
We both have our different ways of approaching games and stuff, but like that's the thing, whether it's a short experience, a long experience, a difficult one, and easy, like it's meant to entertain or give you some kind of feeling. Find the ones you like. And,
mine is arson.
Yeah, there we go. So burn down as many trees as you want. Fuck Smokey the Bear. I mean, fuck Smokey the Bear, right? Have you seen that new Smokey the Bear? He's a twunk.
Beautiful.